And welcome back to the Constitutionals Podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's website. Go there, episode 254.5. I almost messed that up. We have two brand spanking hot new interviews for you today. Audio only. I just hit the mic. You don't get to see me sitting in a sweater that I may or may not have recorded the next episode of this show in. Here we are. We've got two interviews with two night court people. The first interview will be, and I've structured this like a late night show. I got the A slot, I got the B slot, and I got the theme song, and I got the musical transitions, and I got the closing music. Ooh, baby, we got it all. A slot. The first interview, rather, instead of just saying A, B. First interview is with India de Beaufort. I don't know if that's how I pronounce the last name. She's a fantastic actress from the world of the night court, where she plays Olivia, part of the main cast. She's Olivia's the assistant district attorney. Her character is very funny. Also in the interview, I bring up All Hail King Julien, which is one of my favorite recent children's shows. That was airing there on the Netflix, where she played Clover, as well as Crimson. So go check out All Hail King Julien if you love the Madagascar world. It's a spinoff of Madagascar. It's a prequel and a spinoff that leads directly into the first movie. It's so good. She was also on Veep. And you also saw her as Avery, where she, on One Day at a Time, where she was acting alongside Todd Grinnell, who is her husband. Man, what a funny couple that is. I enjoy One Day at a Time. I definitely had to mention that as well. But we're here talking about Night Court. Night Court is back, baby. You know it. I've talked about it on this show proper, I believe. I enjoy the original series of Night Court, and to have a follow-up, and I mean this. I said this to both Stephnie and India, I believe. You don't know who Stephnie is. I'm about to bring her up. I love Night Court. I love the original. I think this follow-up is also good. And I say it's hard to have a follow-up to a show and it be good. And I referenced the Murphy Brown one, because that one was not good. But then you also have shows like The Conners. We're not here talking about those. We're here talking about Night Court. All right. And then after the India interview, I have, which was sadly shortened from the original time we were supposed to have, but it's not my fault. No one's fault. It's no one's fault. And then after that, we have Stephnie Weir, who's a veteran improv comedian and actress. She's going to be on an episode of Night Court. I believe her episode already aired. The day before I interviewed her. Or no, the day I interviewed her. That doesn't mean anything. Who cares? She's from MADtv. You might know her as playing Anna Nicole Smith from MADtv. I have I'll tell you a little secret. I am in the middle. I'm recording another episode after this, and the webcam is still on. The camera I use to record the video is still on, and I keep looking at the feed and I keep looking at the camera as if, because I'm a professional. I'm a professional, and I do things right. And I look at the camera when I'm speaking to it sometimes. Back to Stephnie. Stephnie was also on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which, if you know me, is my second favorite television show of all time. The Simpsons is number one. Then Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Mad Men, SNL, they fall in after that somewhere. What else? She was also in the Mighty Ducks Game Changers, which I believe is the sequel series to Mighty Ducks, but also I think she was in the second season of that show. You've seen her around. She's so funny. She plays sometimes a lot of dim-witted or crazy characters. She also performs around doing improv with her husband, Robert Dassey. She's also been a writer on shows like Raising Hope. And she also, jeez Louise, I'm getting a little choked up here. I've been watching Stephanie since, on MADtv days, which is true. I was so eager to talk to her. And then it happened, and then I was the eagerness continued. Doesn't make it sound like was such a bad thing. Okay, well that's all I got for these intros. So you'll hear India first, which is about 10 minutes, and then you'll hear Stephanie's next, which is about 20-ish. Or less than 20. Quite frankly, I forgot. All right, well, if you like what you heard here, check out Night Court on NBC. It's a great show. Just put it on. Just go on Peacock. Pay the $5. Put it on. Watch a bunch of episodes back to back. I usually watch 2 episodes back to back. One time I took a I do the surveys that streaming networks or companies send out to you that in your email. If I like a company, I'll do a Target survey. I'll do a Netflix survey. And speaking of which, I did a Hulu survey once. And this will always stick with me. I did a Hulu survey where it asked, how do you watch TV shows or something like that? And then there's like, do you binge watch them? And then they gave their definition of binging in parentheses. They said, in a parenthetical rather, they gave their no parentheses. It wouldn't be parenthetical. It's not an action or describing what a character is doing. I'm thinking in terms of a script. The parentheses said, Hulu defines binge watching as watching 3 or more episodes of a show. And I have been using that definition for binge watching. Yesterday, I binge watched 3 episodes of Hello Tomorrow. But I also only watched 2 episodes of The Simpsons. They did an Oscars all day marathon. Anyway, I'll stop doing that. Okay. Night Court, NBC. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, at C Plus Comedy, me on those, at Chad Black White. If you want to listen to the other podcasts, which I urge you to do, subscribe to LinkedIn Logs, where I try to be the number 1 linked influencer, and now the number 1 OnlyFan. It's a little side quest. And then what's the other show I do? Late Night Lately, which is the late night show. Talk about the best of late night of the week. Video versions of those podcasts, as well as the Constitutionals, not this episode, on youtube.com/C Plus Comedy, alongside News Time, which is our premiere show, where I take a topic and I boil it down with sometimes comedic results. Okay. 8 minutes. Almost 9. Okay, here we go. India is coming up first. I'll see you on the other side. I'm doing well. What about yourself?
I'm good. Look at that incredible painting.
Thank you. I did not make it myself. I found it at a antique store that is now closed.
What? That is so cool. And it's huge.
I know. Yeah. I bought it because it makes me look like a Coke dealer when I'm not.
I don't think so. I think it makes you look like an art collector.
Yes, like a very someone who enjoys the finer things. That and this whatchamacallit.
Typewriter. I'm seeing it. Yeah.
I'm glad I could impress you. It's tough. It's tough, trying to impress people who work in the industry.
I'm very impressed. Very impressed. Not that me being impressed matters at all.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it does. You know what? It's, as someone who is on and now in my favorite universe of sitcoms, 2 of my favorite universes of sitcoms. It's tough, man. You are killing it. You're killing it in terms of multicam comedy. I'm talking, of course, of Night Court and One Day at a Time, which are just 2 of the funniest shows I've seen in my entire life.
Oh, that's so lovely. And I'm so glad you've also seen One Day at a Time. That show is like, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but I'm married to Schneider.
Yes.
Um, and so that show is like an extension of our heart. That show is our family.
Right. I mean, I know if that show was still going on and Night Court was happening, I don't know if you could do both, but it was amazing how both of these shows are two updates of older television shows from generally the same time period in TV, and they came out, and now these new ones came out around the same time, and they've translated so well. It's like it's so lucky. It's so lucky that these two things have happened, and that, you know, especially for one day at a time, it can showcase people who don't typically, at least now or even back then, have chances as showcases. And then for Night Court, I mean, we have this cast full of, you know, brown people. It's funny still too. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's high time that we were being respectful and also reflecting the reality of what our world is. It's incredible that One Day at a Time was such a phenomenal example of uh, an amazing Latinx family, so beautifully represented by Gloria Calderon-Kellett and Mike Royce. Gloria is Cuban, and she was basically telling her own story. And this incredible TV show that should still be on the air, that I can't believe is not, was universal. It spoke universally to everybody, but represented the Latinx audience in a way that just doesn't happen enough. And again, with Night Court, it is awesome to look around and see that we're reflecting society in a progressive way, in the way that we always should have. And those conversations are being had on set nonstop, whether it's background actors, whether it's the guest stars that come in, whether it's, you know, whether or not we have male or female bailiffs, whether it's not, you know, how we're representing each community, because we are also, it's a courtroom. So, you know, who are our defendants, who are our prosecutors, who's sitting in the gallery. These are all conversations that need to be had to make sure that we are representing 2023 as we should be. We're so far behind and everybody's trying to catch up. But at least now this conversation is out there and being had, and people are doing the work. By no means enough, but it's beginning.
Yeah, and the fact that Night Court is popular, it's probably the most popular news show on I don't know these numbers, but on broadcast, the way that, you know, NBC and Peacock are just promoting it and pushing it out. I mean, it's fantastic to see, especially a multicam. When we're in a world full of single camera sitcoms, you know, save for CBS shows, to lead the pack in terms of comedy, and it's funny. It's so funny. The situations are so reminiscent of things that happened in the late '80s and the early '90s when it comes to sitcoms. And I just, how was that? Was it an easy decision for you to join the show and join the storied world of Night Court?
Absolutely. I mean, multicam is to me the biggest challenge there is. All I've ever wanted was to shoot a multicam as a series regular. And it's so interesting, the loop of the way it goes. People decide, oh, well, multicam is, nobody's really making those anymore. They're kind of gone out of style. Now we're all making awkward office space comedies. Oh, okay. Now we're done with awkward space office comedies. Now we're going to go and make these like giant, sweeping, enormous stunts, craziness, dramedies that are listed as comedies, but actually are very dark. Oh, well, now we're done with that. And so it's fascinating that people decide that these are trends, and they forget that actually it's pockets of audience. Some people love a multicam. Some people love, you know, the Office. Some people love Barry. And we can have all of those things, and they can all coexist at the same time. And we can celebrate them all uniquely. It's saving space for each of them and doing it right. And the one thing that I think NBC really did right when it comes to Night Court is they publicized Night Court the way they used to publicize shows in the 80s and 90s. It was every billboard, every bus, every subway stop, every, you know, they were throwing them on during the Super Bowl, and you know, the commercials are just going and going and going. And it meant that people knew we were there, because how else do you find a show when there's 50 billion shows in the universe?
Right.
So that pulled the audience in. And then when they got to us, we didn't reimagine the wheel. We made a continuation of a beloved show, and we respected the style of multicam. and everybody was on board with that task and wanting to have the same result, which was to make an updated 2023 version of something that's beloved. It wasn't broke, so we didn't fix it. We just carried it on. And it's a lot to try to live up to what Night Court was. And, from what I'm gathering from our audience is that people are feeling that we managed to pull that off respectfully, whilst also making it fresh to the current audience.
Right. And then to bounce off what you were saying about not reinventing the wheel, it's the continuation thing is important. I think, when shows falter, like the Murphy Brown reboot that came about a couple years ago, that was kind of bringing in the audience on the joke, and it just didn't work out. Whereas for a show like Night Court, and even One Day at a Time, you're working with people who have been who had still been working inside that multicam world, and now you're with Melissa and John, and they're two just mega stars in terms of sitcoms. And were you able to what were you able to pull away from them when you joined the cast, and even if there's a mentorship role on that level?
I just watch them nonstop. They're both so respectful that I don't think either of them would ever tread on the foot of another actor without it being asked for. Whereas I'm always just like, John, give me the skinny. Tell me how I do this. Give me something here. What do I got? Do you see a bit? If you see a bit, let me know. Like, if there's something I'm missing or not catching, or because I want to absorb all of the brilliance that is on that set. And Melissa, God bless her, is so busy. She's wearing 50 billion hats. So I bother her far less for acting coaching, but I would take it from either of them, because, as you say, they are two of the greats, and it's a thrill to get to watch them work.
Would you the old Night Court, they had a lot more weirder cases that they were dealing with. Would you like to see a return to that? Just bring in more like alien, like the Star Trek guys who fought the other Star Trek guys or Star Wars guys or whatever. And I want to see more weird stuff like that.
I'm down for all of it. I think that a show like Night Court people expect us to be a little bit out there. And so why not run with it? Why not run with the fun of the fact that we're not making a documentary. This isn't a documentary of the legal system. This is a comedic spot for you to come and hang out with people that you love, a bunch of misfits that make you laugh. So the more misfits we bring in week by week, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, India, I think I have all I need. Thank you so much for your time. I do want to tell you, if they ever bring back All Hail King Julien or anything from the Madagascar world, you got to jump back in there. Just please tell your agent, tell everybody, just get you back into that Madagascar world, because it all ties together, and I can't believe I'm an adult who enjoys that.
I love Clover and Crimson for life.
All right, thanks. Have a good one.
Pleasure to meet you. Bye.
Pleasure to meet you. Bye. Stephnie.
Hi.
Oh, how's it going?
Life is good. Really good.
Yeah.
How about you?
I'm doing well. I do apologize if you hear any like scraping going on in the background. There's some men working on our apartment floors outside, and they just started like 2 minutes ago.
Of course. I'll apologize in advance if if a squirrel tries to break into our house. You're going to hear them. I've got the lo-fi on, and they're like settled, but it'll all work out. We'll get through this, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll do our best. I don't know why these things always have to happen to us in the middle of the important times of day.
Right. I know.
So how's acting going? How's everything in the comedy world for you?
Things are good. I've been doing a lot of guest star stuff lately, and finished up Mighty Ducks. It's been several months ago, but it's good. And my husband and I perform comedy together, have for years. We're improvisers, and so playing on that, and life is good.
That's great to hear. I know you from MADtv, and I've seen you do dozens of impressions and everything. And it's interesting because the last couple of years we've seen a dip in sketch shows and sketch comedy and everything. And like it feels as though shows like MADtv were the last bastion in the early 2000s for that type of comedy.
Yeah, like in front of a live audience kind of comedy. I mean, I think it was very well replaced with like Key and Peele and Amy Schumer and those things. It always, comedy just kind of goes back and forth. And I think we're due for, Saturday Night Live will always be there, but I think we're due for another live in-person sketch show. It just has to feel fresh and ready. Cause I love that, live audience vibe. And it's always fun to play in front of as a comedian, and someone's going to get it right and get on it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, like even thinking of Key and Peele, which I believe you were on, correct?
I was on an episode, and those guys started at MADtv, and we had crossover. A couple of years, I believe, but yeah.
I mean, they innovation, they found a way to do it, especially like in the first two seasons where they were kind of following Chappelle's lead with the stand-up bits in front of the audience and that lead into the sketches. But then later on, they went into pre-planned like storylines where especially in the last season when they were driving towards I guess in the desert towards the unknown. But I think innovation is the thing that can help drive comedy, to drive people to do more different expressive things when it comes to finding out what the limits are of comedy.
And I think those two, Keegan and Jordan, I really loved that they kind of had a short, concise run of their show, and watching it evolve. Like by that last season, you could kind of see where Jordan was heading, with the next phase of like how he saw comedy and working it into, these, ideas that he just paved his own path. It was so original. I'm with you. And I'm excited to see what's next. And I feel like, so much of the ground is being laid on YouTube and some of the shorter, comedy bits that we're seeing, TikTok. I have high schoolers and a junior high schooler. And so they keep me up to date on like what they're watching and what holds their attention. And, it's kind of foreign to me, but I can see that it's leading to the next thing.
Speaking of TikTok and these online short form videos, do you feel a need to keep up? Or do you feel like you're, I don't want to say out of touch, but just not, going along with the comedy, even though you can see it's there, something that doesn't, because for me, that's what I feel like I'm in that age bracket of people who should be using it, understanding it, but I just don't feel like I'm the target audience based on the things that I watch, including, episodes of MADtv or Crazy Ex-Girlfriend or something.
I never feel a need to keep up. I just, life's just too busy. And I think if it wasn't for my high schoolers and stuff, I probably wouldn't know about it as much as I do. I'm always like, please get off your phone. And, they're like, I want to show you this one thing. And then, an hour later, I'm still, laughing at whatever. But I don't, honestly, it's not how I would digest comedies. They show me stuff sometimes that I'm like, I just don't, I don't see how it's funny or whatever. But my kids also love The Office. Like they digest larger chunks of comedy. So I'm wondering, where it will fall. And I've been, saying to them, like, I love nothing more than a multicam, and kind of bringing it back to this show of Night Court, wanting to see someone hit the target of kind of an old school multicam, but something that feels fresh and watchable for, me and my kids.
Right.
Yeah.
I came to Night Court in the most roundabout way. A couple of years ago, I had a job where I was, more or less the standards and practices of a network here in Atlanta. And they while they had TV shows that they made themselves, the big thing was acquisitions. And one of the shows that they acquired was Night Court, the original Night Court series. So I was in charge of like having to watch every episode, making sure that it fit within standards and practices. And, for some shows, It was great. Law and Order. I saw a lot of that. According to Jim, they had that, or the Home Improvement. But
Oh,
when it was a bad show, I just tried to get through as fast as possible. But when I started Night Court, I had no idea what it was, and I knew it came on. I knew Harry Anderson left Cheers for it, and I started watching it, and I just instantly fell in love because it is so quick and so funny, and I still think it stands the test of time to this day. And when I heard that it was coming back for a new reboot, a continuation, I thought like this show is so ripe for it, even if some of the cast members are long gone. But I think that there's a lot of shows that came back that aren't funny, and this version of Night Court is just it really fills that void of what the old Night Court was. Even I just love it. It's so great, and to see that you're going to be a part of that world as I believe a podcast host, correct?
Yes, I'm making a single appearance as a podcast host, just a kind of a guest who stirs the pot a little bit. And I couldn't agree with you more. I feel like we see, especially right now, a lot of reboots, a lot of some hits, some misses, but from the beginning, I felt like they really approached this in such a smart way. And yeah, that's not an easy thing to do, to revisit something that we've all already seen. And it just feels very fresh.
Yeah. And, a podcast, I like it when there's a reboot and then they have to introduce like new elements of the new world, like internet and Wi-Fi, like, so a podcast
cell
definitely
phones,
fits
right?
in.
Yeah, totally.
It's great. How did you approach I know it's a one-time character, but how did you approach your is Rebecca, am I correct in pronouncing
yes
it? Okay.
Yes. And how I approached it, I have some experience in broadcast journalism, so I was trying to approach it that way. And then also, we've all listened to Serial and some of the more serious, and so trying to bridge that. I think at the end of the day, I was just leaning on feeling out the audience and feeling the timing of things, and just trying to make sure that the comedy was there and that the connections with the other characters, and that I was at least moving, doing what I was supposed to do, which was kind of ignite a flame within this ensemble.
Right. So now I think, so you can probably answer this for me. Is there a live audience in front of the cast?
There is. Yeah. It's shot in front of a live audience, which was another reason I was so eager to do it. And when you have a cast like this one with John Larroquette and Michelle, who has a ton of experience playing in front of a live audience from Big Bang, you can really tell right away. They've got a real firm grip on, playing the moment, but also keying into the audience and letting that affect the comedy like you would in a real live stage show. And both so quick on their feet, so fun to play with.
Yeah. What I think what needs to happen is we go back to the days of sitcoms of the 80s and 90s. And at the beginning of the show, they need to say the words, "This is filmed in front of a live studio audience." Because I was so confused. People are laughing when I'm laughing. I didn't know what was going on.
Oh, no. Yeah, sometimes I feel like they need to turn to the audience so you can connect the voice with the laughter, because it does always feel so canned sometimes, and disjointed. That's so interesting. Yeah, I love a multicam. I crave them and go back, I'll go all the way back to Golden Girls, to get a fix. I feel like, I don't know, something about that medium just really appeals to me. And so I'm excited about this show.
Yeah. With it feeling like a stage play, and you're doing, like a week's worth of work, versus for like a single camera, you've got to do a couple of days here and there. Maybe it takes a couple of weeks. Is that, do you ever feel like you're, I don't want to say, a part of the crew, part of the cast, like you're welcomed in, or does it just feel like it's another job, another gig? I got to keep moving forward.
Every guest star thing is different. This felt very much like I was, very welcomed in, part of the ensemble, part of the creative process too, because there was a little bit of finding this character and making it fit what I was capable of doing and tweaking it to what I was bringing. It can be both. It can feel like a day's work, but with the multicam, the schedule, just because you're all together running the show all together, and when you're not, it's not your scene, you're still there doing the run through, because you do them back to back, and you kind of, run it in front of the network and in front of the studio so they can give notes. So it feels like an ensemble, like you're doing a play, and, a performance, and which really benefits the show, I think, because it feels cohesive. And you definitely don't always get that with a single cam. You maybe have a table read where you are all together and feel that glue, but you're absolutely right. Like there are times where, if you just have a odd scene, you don't even see anybody else. You don't see any of the other scenes. So yeah, this definitely makes it feel like a group dynamic. It's special that way.
Now with it kind of running like a machine for the multicams, is there ever room for you to improv, coming from a world that is like unscripted and you're able to throw in every show or every, line, something different? Does it ever feel too rigid?
For multicam,
Yes.
you mean? Actually, I think it's just the opposite. And I've worked on several multicams, and it's my absolute favorite. Once you've got a take that's clean and what they need to service the script, and if you feel like you've been given permission to do it, it's the best place to improvise. And John Larroquette is fantastic at throwing in a line but staying within the borders that you need to service the story or whatever. When you're improvising, it's easy to take some sort of tangent that is not going to work at all. But he was really fun to play off of, and there was a little room for play for me to improvise. And the audience is so surprised because you're doing more than one take in front of a live studio audience, so they're ready to hear the same scene. And when you throw in a different line, or the writers have run in and give you an alternate line, or switched up your dialogue, it always makes it feel so much fresher for the audience, everybody involved, because they're in on the recording process. They're part of that experience and so important to it. So it feels, when you're doing it right and it's on, working, it really, at the end of it, I feel like we all want to high five each other and the audience. Like, we did it. We made it. It's only 9:30. We weren't here till midnight. Everybody remembered their lines. So it kind of feels like a victory. And hopefully that comes across on screen too when you're watching it, in the best case scenario.
How do you keep your energy up, especially for these, like for shoot day, for, I think you guys, the multicams, do they still shoot on Fridays? Like, is that still a thing?
There's some varying schedules. There are some that shoot like on a Tuesday night or whatever. But if I'm recalling, because we shot this a bit ago, I feel like it was a Monday through Friday, and Friday night we did the shoot. I could, if I'm way wrong, someone will let me know. But keeping your energy up, I think it's just, for me, knowing a live audience is there and you're performing it in front of people, that immediately keeps my energy up. I have a harder time on a single camera where you are, literally have doze marks on your face because you have no idea when you're going to actually show up to do your scene, and then you've got to kind of turn it on and caffeinate and do all the whatever. So for a multicam, I feel like it's a little bit more of a predictable schedule, and so maintaining your energy and just that live audience, when you see them being loaded in, you don't have any choice but to feel jazzed and a little bit nervous in a good way.
Yeah. Are you still doing improv with a troupe, or like just popping up at shows here and there?
My husband and I have done an improv show together called Weird Ass. My last name is Weir. His last name is Dassey. So we've been Weird Ass for 20 years now. And we started doing this show together, a 2-person improv show, years ago. We still get invited to come to festivals. So we're headed to Austin in a few months, and we'll be, I think we're going to Bozeman. And so I do improvise. And I've got a show in LA on the 23rd. Improvising with him. And so, yeah, I still do. I think there was a long break with the pandemic and had to kind of dust it all off, but nothing like being on stage. Yeah.
And how do you approach, working with your husband and then also working with other improvisers? How do you approach developing a show or working on a show and making sure that it's fit for an audience to enjoy?
A scripted show,
Or
it
or
kind
or an,
of
or an improv show.
an improv show, you just really have to, I've been doing this for a long time, so I feel like we're pretty skilled at uh, knowing how to yes and each other, knowing how to get a good positive product on stage in front of an audience in improv. I mean, you're just kind of making it up as you go along, but within, there are guidelines for improvisation. I've done shows where you've improvised and used that material to create a scripted show. My husband and I have done that before, where you do a scripted show, and that's another skill set. It's just trial and error, almost like stand-up comedy. Something you think is going to work doesn't, and then you just have to kind of edit it out until you get something polished that you feel good putting a name on and presenting.
Did you two meet in the world of comedy? Like
We
what, or did you? Okay, wow, all right.
We did, man. We go way back. We had my first improv class at Second City in Chicago. My husband was in that class. And so I know, I mean, my husband and my best friend that is still my best friend today. And I have so many friends that I gained from the improv scene in Chicago. So yeah, that's where we met. We did a scripted show the week before we got married together. I mean,
Wow.
I know that's how much we were performing together. I was like, well, if we can survive this, I guess we should go ahead and follow through on getting married. And so we did. And
Yeah,
it's worked out.
it is. Yeah, really. 20 years later, I mean, improv is really the test. That's a strange test for marriage, but it seems to have been the ultimate best one for the both of you.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Good observation. Good observation. We're still improvising all the time. Yeah. Just trying to, get to the next scene of life. That's all we're doing,
Yeah, playing zip zap zop with the kids when they're young.
Oh my gosh. That's what we say. That's why we had children, is so we'd have an audience. That was really the whole point for it. So
And so you guys are making shows. How do
Mhm.
you, when you were at MTV, not MTV, excuse me, MADtv. Well, I call MADtv MTV because I have way too much time on my hands. Um, when you were developing characters over there, how was that process for you? Was it something like I'm going to try to do Anna Nicole Smith and that's going to be my best proxy, or how did you approach going and making things up?
I've always kind of been a sponge and good at taking character traits that I see around me. And, even as a kid, being able to kind of incorporate them physically. So it's always come from lots of family tics that I've done, over the years that I've kind of glommed from that. And that's how I've always approached my comedy. I'm not really a great impersonation kind of person as far as, like Nicole Parker, who was on our show. She is stellar. She has this, her voice is her tool and she can just change it. Anna Nicole Smith, I just happen to sound just like her because we were both born in Texas on the exact same day.
Oh, wow.
Not far from each other. So, when she started coming out with this reality show, and then somebody in the writing room put together that, if you close your eyes and Stephnie has maybe had a drink, she really sounds like Anna Nicole Smith. And, so that was how that was born. I was always a little uncomfortable doing her because, I don't know, felt like I was making fun of a real person. And it, that was a tough journey to watch.
Yeah.
And so true impersonations were never my strong suit. It was more about character work and lovable losers. I've always been fond of the old ladies. I'm growing into that eventual role of playing the old woman I was always meant to be. So anyway.
Yeah, it reminds me of your character from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I think that's a very good distillation of what you just said. It's she was, I don't want to say desperate, but like very, very really wanting in life, and that's why she was so standout.
Oh, she was a melting pot of every bad quality I have personally or have glommed from my family and friends. She was so much fun to do. It's such a weirdo. It was great.
Yeah. Did you ever want to sing your own songs for that show?
I don't have a great singing voice. I can carry a tune, but the people on that show were skilled.
Mhm.
Like you enjoyed hearing their voices behind the music. They gave me a few little things to kind of vocalize, and I think that was enough. I think we all were like, okay, plenty.
Well, is there anything, as somebody who guests on a lot of shows,
Mhm.
I mean, I get that there's this want of, I need to have like my own type of platform and do my own thing.
Mhm.
Like, is that something that you are still striving for, or have you settled into, I'm going to play character A's best friend?
I don't think you can really chart this journey. There are so many variables when you're doing this. I write and have developed for TV for many years. I made a good part of my living writing on TV series and developing a dozen multicams. And a lot of them I've created for me. And that's what I continue. That's a target I continue to want to hit. And I'm working on something currently, and I post a lot of kind of sketch character stuff. My husband and I have a YouTube channel called Weird Ass. And so, yeah, I'm always kind of continuing working towards that, but I absolutely love what I do. I love the opportunities that I get, and it's all just kind of, I guess we'll see what happens. But to answer your question, yeah, ideally, I would like to write something for myself and move forward with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love that because I think, especially with your background in improv and then also having worked in sketch, it's your brain is fit for, everybody has different,
Mhm.
paths and traits and everything. But I think people like with your background are perfectly fit and matched for being able to make TV shows that'll fit in with the person who likes to watch comedy versus
Mm.
the person who likes to dip in and out. Because I think that's what stays the most is, when a show is just, strikingly funny, like Reboot on Hulu, that
Mhm.
like people stick with it, and even if the show's canceled, those people still continue to watch it and enjoy it versus
Mhm.
a bigger show that just doesn't have that many laughs.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for saying that. I feel like a lot of the shows that I watch and enjoy the most and really glom onto are sometimes those kind of fringe shows that seem to have a really pure, clear voice behind them. And yeah, I think that's the goal for a lot of comedians. And for me, I have never felt more at home or keyed in than in front of a live audience. And when I was doing sketch and doing, multicams, there's just something, and improvisation in general, something about that dynamic that just suits me so much. And so that's always the target I'm aiming for, is kind
Mhm.
of the multicam world of comedy. And, I want to live and create in that kind of format and see what I can do.
Yeah, and you've already, you've proven yourself in the past, but there's also with the weren't you a consulting producer on Raising Hope?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
I wrote on that and the Millers. Mhm.
Yeah, so it's like it's the behind the scenes stuff. Like I always urge people to continue doing that because I think that's what really helps with the in front of the camera thing and with like getting your voice and your face out there because people really love that consistency.
Oh, for sure. And I have to say, I've been in writers' rooms where it's all teamwork, and there's
Mhm.
nothing like it to feel, even if you're not in front of the camera, hearing what you wrote, or it's just that teamwork, ensemble work that I kind of crave. Um, and is very informative when you wind up in front of the camera. And I was on a show, Happy Together, a few years ago with Damon Wayans Jr. and Amber Stevens West, and the guys who created it asked me to play a role in it, and also asked me to be on the writing side. And it was
Mm.
so interesting to me because when I was on set in front of the camera, there was a kind of a line in the sand that, like actors, you have to be really careful when you're going in to pitch a line. And I thought, well, I'm also a writer, so all of my jokes are going to be welcomed, wholeheartedly. And then to go over and you're kind of met with the face that a writer producer gives an actor when they're pitching something, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, well, yeah, that's good. You know what? Maybe not this take, but we'll keep it in mind. And I was like, oh my God, I'm that person. So anyway, it was fun to wear all the different hats and, have a little empathy for one another for those roles. And like you said, it kind of fleshes out your overall experience. So
yeah. Well, Stephnie, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I do appreciate this. This was a true delight from watching you a couple of years ago, and still seeing you on TV. It's been a pleasure. It's been great.
Well, pleasure was mine. Nice to meet you, Chad.
Nice to meet you as well. You have a wonderful rest of your week.
You too. Bye.
All right. Bye.